Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, Southwick Community Programming, and Agawam Media. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and as most people up and down the valley in western Massachusetts know, this is a symphony weekend. The Springfield Symphony Orchestra returns to Springfield Symphony Hall for its first full season in 2 years, opening tomorrow night with a really great program with a guest conductor, Joanne Falletta. The program includes Kodai's Dances of Galantia, Edward Elgar's Cello Concerto, and Dvorak's Symphony No. 7. The cellist for this is Joshua Roman. He's my guest this first half hour. And in the second half hour, we'll be talking with David Kidwell, who's the maestro of the Holyoke Civic Symphony. Their season opens this weekend. And to be trite, let's just say our hills are alive with the sound of music. Joshua Roman has quite the career, not only as a cellist, but as a composer, as a collaborator and arranger. He started out as a principal cellist with the Seattle Symphony, and he's done all kinds of interesting collaborative works, you could say from Beethoven to Radiohead type of work. So first of all, welcome to Artsbeat. And second of all, Joshua, is this your first performance with the Springfield Symphony?
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm glad to be here and talk about, yes, my first performance with the Springfield Symphony.
And is it your first performance of the work that you're going to be soloing on, or have you performed that before?
I have performed the Elgar Cello Concerto many times before, actually, including last week, 2 weeks ago? I forget. I'm doing it a lot this season. It comes up pretty regularly, and it's such a powerful moving testament to the capability of the cello to sort of have a human quality to the sound.
One of the questions somebody asked me to ask you, you learn as a cellist and as a soloist with orchestras, you learn a lot of repertoire, like this particular piece. Do you memorize it, or do you have to go back and relearn it each time you perform it?
That's a good question. I think the answer might be slightly different for everybody, but for myself, most of the big cello concertos, including the Elgar and others like the Dvorak Cello Concerto, those are pieces that I learned young enough that they're just in my blood. I don't think I can forget it if I try. I keep the score handy. In fact, I'm studying it right now just to make sure that I've not lost any little details about where Elgar would like one note to be brought out more or something else. But as far as remembering the basic piece, that's been in there since before I had a driver's license.
And when you're working with different conductors all the time, I mean, have you worked with this guest conductor coming to Springfield? Have you worked with her before?
I've not yet worked with Joanne Falletta, and I'm very, very excited to. I've known about her for a long time, and been looking forward to this opportunity, both to come to Springfield and to work with Joanne for the first time.
So, doing this particular performance in Springfield with a conductor you've not worked with before, will this change the focus of the work, maybe compared to what you did 2 weeks ago?
Absolutely. In fact, I will highlight that by telling you when I did this 2 weeks ago, the conductor who was supposed to conduct got COVID and was replaced by somebody who had never done the Elgar Cello Concerto before. And what was really interesting about that was that, in a sense, he was totally fresh. You know, I've played this with many orchestras, with many conductors. I've rehearsed it with many pianists. So whatever I think I might be bringing to it that is sort of a blank slate, it can't truly be a blank slate because I've been influenced by all of those wonderful collaborators. And that's true every time you come together with somebody. I'm sure Joanne has conducted this piece many times. I'm sure the Springfield Symphony has played it. So we're all bringing some history, some experience to that mix. And it's not, there's not enough time, even if you wanted to take a sort of authoritarian tactic of it, there's not enough time with orchestras to do that. So really, you go and you listen to what's there, and you have an idea before of what the piece is to you, but you listen to what's there and you work with that, and it's a real humbling lesson in collaboration, which is beautiful.
When did you first take up the cello, and what prompted you to get into music?
So I started when I was 3. My parents both play classical music for kind of on the side. They had studied it, and my dad went into choral conducting and started conducting a church choir, and my mom was playing piano for that choir, and now is actually conducting the same choir that my dad conducted for some of my youth. So there's a lot of music in the family, and they put me on the cello. I just loved it. I, from the age of 6, said, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life." And I know now that sort of like they were very hesitant to support that. They were very supportive, but at the same time, tried to talk me out of it quite a bit. But here we are.
But you've had in a young career, you've had a lot of diverse experiences working with orchestra as a soloist, chamber, and all kinds of other things. Are you still discovering the various genres that you can work in, or do you think that you've found your niche?
That's an interesting question. I do think that there's more to discover. There are some things that I've dabbled in that would take a focused period of time to really go farther with, and there are lots of examples of styles or cultures where music has very specific language. For example, Indian classical music. Wow, I mean it's a world unto its own. I get to play pieces written with some rags occasionally, but that's really not being immersed in Indian classical music. Jazz is another one. With jazz, I actually did play jazz bass for a while when I was a kid, and that gave me enough experience to feel comfortable. So there's this awkward thing that happens now where if someone wants to play jazz together, I feel like at the end of it, and this has actually happened, they're gonna look at me and they're gonna be like, "Oh wow, you're pretty good for a cellist." But of course, I know enough to want to be better than that. If I'm gonna do jazz, I want to do jazz, but it would take really immersing in that world to pull it off in a way that's not just crossover. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but there are things that I've touched and I've got a taste for, and at this point, it's a matter of prioritizing and I'm sure and I hope that there are things that I have not yet done that will surprise me. But in the meantime, there's plenty to revisit and dig into that I don't feel like I really did before.
Where do you base yourself these days?
I'm in Hell's Kitchen in New York. In
My old neighborhood.
Oh, nice, nice. Where were you?
I lived on West 45th between 8th and Ninth, right across from what was the Martin Beck Theater. I know it's the name of the theater has changed. There was a great little Japanese restaurant on the corner of 8th and 45th that I hung out at a lot. It's a great neighborhood.
It's a good neighborhood. There's so much, as you say, theater, and Ninth Avenue has turned into just like restaurant row. It's insane, especially between about 45th and 56th or so, 55th.
When I started my professional career, I was living in New York, and I came up here to Springfield to be the marketing director of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and I commuted back and forth on the train. I had my apartment in New York, and I'd come up here. And my parents lived up here. I'd stay a couple of nights a week, and there was a bakery on a Ninth Avenue called Poseidon, which was a Greek bakery and did strudels. I used to take orders from people on Springfield and come back on the train on Monday mornings with apricot and cherry strudels. I gained so much weight on the train between New Haven and Springfield, eating samples of everything that I was, told to bring back to town.
Oh, that's hilarious. I was there for the first time just a month ago and loved it. Bought a bunch of stuff to take to people just like you did. It's amazing. That place apparently has been there. I mean, they moved once, but it's like it's a fourth generation family owned bakery. It's
And the
amazing.
best baklava I've ever had comes from
Okay.
Poseidon.
So good. Yeah, yeah.
So you
Shameless plug for Poseidon here.
yeah,
Yeah.
you do a lot of soloing with orchestras and other kinds of things. What is your schedule like over the course of a year? Do you get to stay put? Do you travel a lot? How does it play out?
Before the pandemic, it was almost nonstop travel. I would say 80% of the time I was on the road playing concerts. And at a certain point, I realized that that doesn't really leave the space for creating projects or, going back to delving into other styles of music or collaborations. You only have the time to develop that when you're constantly doing something while getting ready for the next thing, never home for more than a couple of days. So I've been much more intentional. The pandemic sort of, laid everything flat. And I'm doing my best to ease back in slowly and pick things that I really want to do and leave the space around them to work on some projects so that I can be a little more intentional about what I put out into the world and not just play what I'm asked to play, which I love doing too. But as an artist, you're always caught between artistic impulse, which can be very immediate or can be big things. And then at the same time, the need to be hired because it's a freelance mentality and there's not a whole lot of job security. So somewhere in between those, finding a balance of saying no and leaving space for building things while still staying out in the world and doing things.
Yeah, how did the pandemic impact you as an artist and as somebody who was living in New York?
Well, at the time, I was actually trying not to live in New York. I was, finding my relationship with the city again, and so I left, and I was doing a residency in Santa Barbara. I had put everything in storage, so I didn't have a fixed address, and I was gonna like settle down and figure that out. But I had too many concerts to take the time to do that, which was a blessing, but also difficult. And when the pandemic hit, I was in the middle of this composition residency that I was doing in Santa Barbara, writing a double concerto. And I ended up just staying there for quite a while because literally every concert was just canceled. All of my income disappeared. All of the trips, I didn't get on an airplane for 8 months. That was the longest I'd gone since, I don't know, decades, without getting on an airplane. And so I started doing a lot of, at first it was just a lot of live online performances, but I was running myself ragged trying to do too much of that. And so I backed off. And then I started this project, which has really helped influence how I practice and how I think about what directions come next, which is that I started doing a lot of multi-track cello recording, sort of composing and improvising at the same time and creating these pieces. I started a project in response to the pandemic that was commissioned by the Protostar Group, a wonderful arts supporting organization. And I, yeah, I really got to dive into like working on finding my voice. I spent so much time trying on different styles and doing different things, but not a whole lot of time working out, well, what does it sound like when it's just coming from inside? So I began that process. There's a lot more to do, but that's something that I look at as I guess you could say a silver lining. And now I'm leaving time to let that affect the choices that I make in the other parts of my career.
Did you find during the pandemic I mean, as a musician, you were able to perform online, you were able to do other kind of thing, but there's a synergy that when you do live performance, it's completely different. I'm a theater reporter who used to work in theater,
Mm.
and it was great to stream plays and musicals from all around the world. I could sit in my living room and see productions of things I might never have seen live, but there's that thing of sitting in a theater and experiencing a performance where the actors or the musicians are doing something and you're there and there's a synergy going back and forth. And you know that the performance changes based on the energy that the audience is giving back. Did you miss that or did you rediscover that when you went back to performance?
All of the above. I mean, what you're saying is so true, and theater is a big place for that. And I think, if you spend a lot of time in the theater, then I'd also be curious what you think about this, that it's sometimes we take it for granted what it means to work well in a certain medium. And classical music is not traditionally done well online. And I don't mean that people don't like it when they see it. I mean that there just hasn't been a whole lot of thought behind what should be online and how you do it online. And one of the big things that I got from the pandemic was exactly that, just the reinforcement that that there's something, especially, I'm just going to zoom in on the cello, even though I think this applies to a lot of things. The cello is an acoustic instrument. It's a powerful acoustic instrument. I sit in a hall with 2,600 people, an orchestra behind me, no amplification, and the person in the last row has to hear every note. That's a powerful acoustic instrument. So that's literally moving the air. That's literally moving the air that we're all breathing, that we're all sharing. And when that hits the ears, that's direct through the air from the strings of the cello, from the body, the F holes, the bridge of the cello, which I'm sitting behind. So there's that, let alone the fact that you've chosen to be somewhere which is an inconvenience. And I think inconvenience sometimes is a way of, it's somehow tied to value, because you chose to set everything else aside, to go to this place with other people who also chose to do that, to receive, participate by being there. And I think that sets you up for a different experience than just opening your laptop and clicking on something. And that's not to say there isn't value. I think a lot of the projects that I've done are actually now geared towards online consumption, but they're specifically done in ways that wouldn't translate in a live performance. And the value of being together in a room for those opportunities has never been more clear to me, that like human connection is not to be taken for granted.
And I learned that, I work with the musicians, and I know a lot of the musicians in the Springfield Symphony. When I go to a performance and I'm paying attention to what they're doing, or even if I'm letting my mind drift away, they know when the audience is in tune with them. And the audience knows when they're not just playing by number, but they're just, there's that certain thing. When you stream something, it's so easy to hit the pause button and go get something to drink or check your email or check your Facebook page or something like that. So you never really, when you stream something, totally concentrate on it. And I'm sure that the creators of material that gets streamed, they have no idea how the audience is responding. So that very special energy between the two is one reason why people need to go to live concerts.
Absolutely. You couldn't be more on the nose, I think, about that. And for me, that's one of the unifying, beautiful things about all audiences that I've played for, is that it doesn't matter the background, the education level within classical music. It's, of course, those things are, they can help you understand when the recapitulation is happening. But as far as a meaningful musical connection, it just takes attention. That's it. People paying attention.
Joshua, we're going to take a very fast break to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible. Before we do, if you want to learn more about Joshua Roman, he has a website, joshuaroman.com. The Springfield Symphony performance at Springfield Symphony Hall. For tickets and information on that, springfieldsymphony.org. And to recap their program, it's conducted by Joanne Folletta. The Joshua Roman is the Prince of the Soloist cellist. The performances include Kodai's Dances of Galanta, Elgar's Cello Concerto, and Dvorak's Symphony No. 7. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. We'll acknowledge your underwriters and be back with more Artsbeat, so don't go away.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. If you've missed a part of today's program, you want to watch it again, share it with friends. It's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. We're chatting with the cellist Joshua Roman, who's performing tomorrow with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra in their opening concert of their current season. He does a lot of concertizing, a lot of composing, but he's done some other interesting works and collaborations, including work with the Tony-nominated actor Anna Deavere Smith, who many of you have seen on television and in some of our area theaters. And I understand that you and your siblings went to Uganda and did some outreach performing and stuff like that. You really get around and do a lot of different things.
It's a lot of different things. It's I've managed to pack a lot into and not that much time. Not much sleep, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I bet you rack up a lot of frequent flyer miles, and so does your cello.
It's it's the whole thing. If people haven't thought about it before, you just open the door. Yeah, the cello gets its own seat on the airplane because you can't put it underneath, which depending on the airline can be fine, but also means that I never get to sit in the window seat. The cello is always in the window seat because you can't climb over it in an emergency. So cello gets the window seat.
So does the cello earn its own frequent flyer miles, and do you get to eat the cello's dinner when meals are being served?
I do get to eat the cello's dinner. That's always been a thing, and the frequent flyer miles depend on the airline. United will do that, but they won't let the cello have its own account. Delta doesn't do either. You know, it's a mix depending on which airline you're with.
And I'm sure they card the cello if the cello asks for a cocktail.
It was just crazy because she's 123 years old.
When you travel, how many cellos do you have?
Just one. I usually have 2 bows with me, but just one cello. There are very few occasions where there's some cello that's a wonderful cello where I'm going, and so I might use that instead. But that's actually very rare because even if the cello is a unique instrument with a draw in and of itself, switching instruments quickly depends on the instrument. It can be fine sometimes, other times it's better if you stick with the one you're used to.
What are some of the collaborations outside of the classical concert hall are you working on right now that are really stretching your horizons or pushing your buttons?
Well, there are all sorts of things that I'm tapping into right now. One of them is a strangely, it's not exactly, I've been trying to work with people who are more in the sort of motivational space, because there's a powerful thing about music opening people up. And there's something in particular about the cello and what people expect from it that I've found. I love doing small events. I love playing for a small group of people and sort of taking them through how I view the cello, which can go all the way from Bach to arrangements of things that everyone recognizes from pop culture or mainstream culture right now. And along the way, you can touch Penderecki and other things, other pieces that use, composers and pieces that use the whole cello in a bunch of different ways, like as a percussion instrument, as a just noisemaker, as a strumming it like a guitar. There are all of these things that can happen on the cello, and finding all of the different places that sort of discovery, that journey of discovery can be relevant is one of the things that I'm doing right now. It's just looking for any and every opportunity for a place where it's important for the audience to feel moved, and moved, I don't just mean touched emotionally, but like they've discovered something. opened up, receptive to new things, music can be a very powerful tool for that. So that's kind of maybe a strange one to toss out there. I don't have any collaborations with dancers right now, but that's something that's been on my mind a lot recently, that would be a beautiful thing to do next. And other than that, right now, the big thing is it's kind of classical, but a little bit kind of classical, a little bit bluegrass, which is with Tessa Lark and Edgar Meyer. And Tessa's a wonderful violinist. Edgar, for my money, like the best bass player ever. So working with the two of them, doing trios that Edgar's written, that Bach has written, and we're sort of coming up with other things as well, has been in development and is super exciting.
When you're not performing or rehearsing or practicing, what do you do to keep your balance and your sanity, and you leave the music behind?
I'm a real geek. I like things. I love studying languages, so I've been going deep into French. So I love watching French television, and seeing if I can do it without. I don't use English subtitles, but can I do it without the French subtitles? That's another level. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like to hang out with people is the biggest thing, actually. I like to do fun things that combine sort of a relaxed vibe with the intellectual curiosity and stimulation of watching French television, for example. But I also really just love being around people. So that can be hanging out with my sister's family down in Chelsea. That can be going places with my girlfriend and just hanging out around the city and seeing what's happening that night. I love parks. I love, just pretty simple.
And after you leave Springfield, what's on your horizon the next couple of months? A lot of travel, or are you getting back into the travel kind of slowly?
I'm really, really trying to go slow. So between Springfield and the end of the year, I only have 2 trips that require airplane travel. And that might change. Sometimes these things change last minute, but I'm setting limits for myself, and working within them. I'm mostly going to be at home working on developing some projects that I have, and actually also organizing some of the commissions that I'm doing right now, which is one thing that I love to do, is commission composers to write new music for the cello. So I've got a little bit of admin work and just a little bit of flying and lots of celloing wherever it is.
Some of the works that you've had that you've been commissioned to write, do you get to see them done multiple times, or do they have a life after their initial premiere?
Yes, actually, not only is that that has happened, but generally for me that's the goal. And so when I said organizing the commissions that I'm doing, that's one of the big things that I'm referring to, is that I want to make sure to get enough support and resources gathered together for every commission that I do, that the piece has its best chance of coming into the world strong. That it's not just one premiere performance and then who knows what happens, because that can be disappointing. So you got to get a good quality recording. It helps to have a video recording if you can, but at the very least, just a good quality recording of the piece. And it really helps to have multiple premieres lined up so that it's not just one thing. If you do a string, 3 or even 4 performances as part of that first round, then you can generate the kind of momentum that gets other people interested in the piece. And that can happen. Mason Bates wrote a cello concerto for me that I think I've played with 15 orchestras now. And there are more performances in the works.
So people can find out more about your work at joshuaroman.com. Are you on social media as well?
I am. I would say Instagram is probably the best place. Joshua Roman Cello is my handle. And then on Facebook, it's the same thing, Joshua Roman Cello. And I do post there too. And Twitter, I basically just retweet.
Well, Joshua, thanks for being here this morning, and hope that everybody gets a chance to come hear your performance of Elgar at the Springfield Symphony's opening concert, conducted by Joanne Valletta. It's addition to the Elgar works by Kodaly and Dvorak, all at Symphony Hall as the Springfield Symphony Orchestra launches its new season. Tickets for that are available at springfieldsymphony.org. Josh, thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Mark.
We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, so we'll be back with more Artsbeat, so don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org. Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. And if you missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it again, or more than once, or share it with friends, it's archived on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. I'm always glad to have the opportunity to chat with my pal, Maestro David Kidwell. He has been the music director and the conductor of the Holyoke Civic Symphony since 1997. Their new season is just about to open. Not too long ago, they honored him in Holyoke with David Kidwell Day. I don't know what I was doing the day that happened, David, but when I saw that happened, I went, wow, that's another great event I missed because I'm absent-minded. David not only conducts there, but he plays in the pit at Goodspeed Musicals on and off. He was the keyboard guy for Kiss My Aztec at Hartford Stage. He's at Hart School right now, music directing The Drowsy Chaperone. He conducts, he teaches, and he composes music. And here he is right now. Good morning, David.
Hi, Mark. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. I understand that, you just had a super busy fall.
Yes, it's like everything I'm doing is in Connecticut. You know, I head down 91 and I'm like, where am I going today? Yeah, it's just a crazy schedule, but I'm loving it because it's all musical stuff.
Yeah. Now, are you? Hart School is a new collaboration for you. Is that right?
It's I actually graduated from Hart. I have my master's degree from Hart many years ago, and I started working there about a year ago. It was the first time I had been back in 30 years. And I started working as an accompanist in the music theater department through my connections with Goodspeed. And just have been really enjoying working with the students there, playing for master classes, playing for auditions. And over the summer, they approached me about music directing. And the show that they were going to be doing was The Drowsy Chaperone, which was one of my favorites from playing at Goodspeed. And so I said yes, and it's just been such a fantastic experience working with these students.
Yeah, and they certainly develop a lot of good musical theater people. I've seen some of them in some of the area regional theaters. They do well.
Yep, they've had some graduates go on to Broadway, a lot of graduates to regional theater, and it's just the faculty there is just phenomenal, and the students, I'm just so impressed with their level of talent, their level of commitment, and just how nice and how passionate they are about the craft. It's just been really a wonderful collaboration with them.
And did you get to do any of Goodspeed season this year?
Yes, I did not do Anne of Green Gables, their summer show, but I did Cabaret, played for a number of performances for that. and I will be playing for 42nd Street starting next week. That's my next big project is to learn my part for 42nd Street, and I'll be playing for performances for the next couple of weeks of 42nd Street at good speed.
It's a great show. I mean, I have not seen the Goodspeed production, but it's just tapping for days and days and days.
Yep, I've played the show before. I did it in I played for a high school production. Holyoke High School did it maybe 15 years ago, and yes, it's a very fun show. My only complaint is that the occasionally Goodspeed will have one or two musicians play down in the green room, and because there's not enough space for the entire pit, and like sometimes it'll be percussion down there, and they'll have to use a video monitor, and their sound is piped into the auditorium. And so for 42nd Street, my chair that I'm subbing for, the keyboard 2 chair, is down in the bowels of the Goodspeed building. So everyone else will be up in the theater enjoying all the tapping and with the audience, and I'll be playing my part down in the basement of the theater, but at least I'll be there.
Yeah, I mean that theater is so small. I suspect when that full ensemble is tapping, the building rocks.
I can probably still hear it from four floors below. Yes.
Yeah. So here we are starting a brand new season of the Holyoke Civic Symphony, and you're going to Scandinavia for this one.
Yes, this is inspired by Rick Steves, actually, the travel writer. I've always enjoyed Rick Steves' books, his travel guides, and during the pandemic, he did every week he would do a Zoom meeting for like thousands of people. He would be in his kitchen, and he would assemble food for his dinner according to whatever country he happened to be visiting virtually that week, and he did one episode on Scandinavian countries, and I believe he's of Norwegian descent, and so he was very passionate about the whole Scandinavian area and culture, and I just got to thinking, could I do a whole orchestral concert of just Scandinavian music, and turns out I can. So we have a couple of pieces by Sibelius from Finland. We have Grieg from Norway, Carl Nielsen from Denmark, and I had a little trouble finding a Swedish composer. I didn't know any Swedish composers, but I did find one somewhat obscure Swedish composer. So we have something by Franz Berwald, kind of a contemporary of Schubert. So it's all music by Scandinavian composers, and it's some familiar music, and it's some music that the orchestra and I were not familiar with. So we've been able to discover it together. So it's been really interesting to sort of get that Scandinavian vibe and see what makes up Scandinavian music.
Well, it's certainly some of it. I think for theater audiences, the Grieg is something that people may know. The Peer Gynt, that I never heard it in the concert hall, but I saw a production at, I believe, Lincoln Center when I was in college. And that the music was composed for the play, and I believe, if my memory's serving right, Judy Collins was in the production.
Oh, wow.
And the music is absolutely, you could sit there and listen to it and just get swept away.
Yes, it's there are two movements from the suite, which is drawn from the all of the incidental music for the play. Two movements that are really familiar to everyone. And at least for me and a lot of the orchestra members, it's familiar because it was on Saturday morning cartoons back when we were growing up. There's the opening theme is ya da 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 da, and you can just hear the birds chirping and the sun coming up, and all because of Saturday morning cartoons.
Wow. So, how can people get tickets? Is it a free concert? Is it a ticketed concert?
It's a free concert, as are most of our concerts. We actually don't have printed tickets. So you can just show up. We don't have any audience limit anymore, which is a great thing. We are still asking audience members to wear a mask. And you can also, if you're not comfortable being there in person, you can also register to watch via Zoom.
And where is all the information available?
That's on our website, www.holyoke.civicsymphony.org. And we actually revamped our website over the summer. So please check out our brand new website.
And I don't know whether it's because I follow you on Facebook or I follow the orchestra on Facebook, but I tend to see things about upcoming concerts on my Facebook feed.
We do. We have a Facebook presence, and we do try to do things on Facebook and Instagram, especially the week of the concert. We usually have posts every single day, like about the music or photos from rehearsal, just interesting things, little tidbits that might draw people into the concert.
And how many concerts do you have lined up for the upcoming season?
We have 4. This one coming up on October 23rd, our Scandinavian concert. And then in December, we have our annual Christmas concert. And our special guest for special soloist, other than Santa Claus, our special instrumental soloist, will be doing the Mozart Clarinet Concerto, one of our favorites. In March, we're doing all themes of romance, music inspired from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And then in May, we're going to have the winner of our concerto competition. And we're also doing William Grant Still's Afro-American Symphony, which is a new work for us. And I'm very excited about that.
And how many members of the orchestra are there these days?
It's a little less than normal because of the pandemic. I'd say it's around 50 right now. Generally, we have between 50 and 60, but it's a solid core group of about 50 very dedicated, wonderful musicians.
And how often or how many times do you get to rehearse a particular concert before it goes up on stage?
Usually we have 6 rehearsals. We rehearse once a week, so 6 weeks before a concert date. And that can be altered depending on, if we have a snowstorm and can't rehearse. I remember there was one concert 5 or 6 years ago that it just snowed on Mondays. We rehearse on Monday nights, and it snowed on Mondays like 3 weeks in a row. And we actually did a concert with only 3 rehearsals, and that was kind of a miracle that we could pull that off. I actually, you can probably tell, my voice is a little bit strained this week. I'm getting over a cold, and we could not rehearse this past week because I didn't want to possibly. And I'm testing negative, but I didn't want to risk exposing the orchestra to anything. So we're doing this concert with 5 rehearsals. So it's always around 6. 6 is the ideal number for us.
So you've got the Holyoke Civic Symphony going. You've got some work at Goodspeed going. You're doing Hart School of Music and their theater productions going. What other irons are in your fire?
I have a new church position. I'm at Enfield Congregational Church in Enfield, Connecticut. And there's no choir there, so I'm just playing organ and piano. And it's a really wonderful congregation. It's a very old New England church building, and they have a lot of music. The minister is a young, dynamic minister who is also a musician, and the service is just packed with music. So I'm really enjoying that. And I'm also teaching at Mount Holyoke College, which is a new thing for me, teaching intro to music theory. And it's nice that it's very close to me since I live in Holyoke. It's just across the river, so it's about a 10-minute drive. So that's very nice. But I'm teaching 5 days a week at 9 o'clock in the morning. So that's a bit challenging when I'm also rehearsing until 10:30 at night down in Hartford.
I was going to say, as a musician, you're a night owl. How could you ever get up? Then I got up this morning at 6 to do a radio taping at 8, and I'm not, I'm one of those night owls as well. I was at the theater last night.
Yep. No, it's the same way for me. I mean, fortunately, Drowsy Chaperone that I'm doing now is a short show, so I was for performances. I'm home at a decent hour, but for rehearsals, we were rehearsing until 10:30 p.m. every single night, and then it's about a 40-minute drive home for me, and then I'm up at 6 or 6:30 getting ready for class, and as long as I have my coffee, though, I'm reasonably alert for a 9 o'clock class.
Well, I think since you're going back and forth to Connecticut every day, I live right by the state line. One of these mornings, we're going to have to caffeinate, as they say, in Long Meadow.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk more with Maestro David Kidwell. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. And if you've missed a part of today's program or you want to watch it, listen to it again, or share it, it's on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Join us every Thursday morning
from 6 until at least 7:30.
Check out the Bobby G and Company Show
right here on WSKB 89.5
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. We're chatting with Maestro David Kidwell from the Holyoke Civic Symphony. Their season opens this weekend, and you probably just missed him conducting and music directing the Drowsy Chaperone at Hart. You can catch him in the pit, or actually not in the pit, but somewhere in the theater playing keyboard for 42nd Street down at Goodspeed. You're a busy guy. Do you ever get a vacation?
Sometimes. Well, I mean, during the pandemic, it was sort of a forced vacation because a lot of my work was not possible during the pandemic. There was no musical theater. Church was virtual. So that was interesting and challenging. Trying to find ways to keep my fingers in all of my different projects. I mean, it was also good to just be able to relax and not do too much. But I also got to the point where I really needed to get back into doing stuff. And so it's kind of gone from 0 to 60 or 0 to 120 in the past couple of months since August, because we started rehearsing Drowsy Chaperone back in August. And my new church job started in September, and Mount Holyoke started their fall semester in September. So it was like everything starting up all at once. I did get a vacation. Mary, my partner, and I went to Mount Desert Island. We always do that at the end of August as sort of a farewell to summer. And we loved that. It was so nice and relaxing, and it seems like it was just forever ago now, even though it was just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I mean, summer is like in the distant past for me as well. I know that you do you do a lot of composing. The Holyoke Civic Symphony and other orchestras and chamber ensembles perform your works. Are you working on anything at the moment?
No, unfortunately, I haven't had time to do any composing with all of my other jobs. In fact, I'm supposed to be doing an arrangement for the December concert with the orchestra. I want to do an orchestral arrangement of Feliz Navidad, and that was on my summer to-do list and never got crossed off of the to-do list. So once Drowsy Chaperone is done with this weekend, I really need to get working on that. But otherwise, unfortunately, I haven't had any time to compose. I would love to get back to that, but it's just right now it's too busy.
When you're driving back and forth to Connecticut on this regular basis, what kind of music goes through your head when you're on the open road?
Um, Usually I try to have whatever music I'm going to be working on next. If I'm driving to the show in Hartford, I'm thinking about rehearsal and things I need to cover in rehearsal. Um, and if I'm driving to, actually sometimes when I'm driving home from rehearsal late at night, I'll be practicing my lecture for the next morning, just talking to myself in the car, practicing my lecture. Um, but a lot of times I will just have the radio on and I don't want to listen to music. I've got too much other music in my head and I just need a break from music. So I'll either listen to NPR or sports talk radio, just something to take my mind off music.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I kind of pre-program what I'm taking in the car. I can't listen to the news anymore,
Yeah,
and
right,
most of what's programmed on radio, music-wise, it's kind of like background noise. So, but then
right,
if I'm listening to something really intense, like a Sondheim or something like that, I lose track of where I'm going. So I've got to find
right.
that fine balance of what plays in the car.
Yes, and that's especially dangerous for me if I'm on 91 South and I lose track of where I'm going, then that's a bad thing.
Yeah, you're going so many places. When you go into a show like 42nd Street, do you get any, you jumped in, the show's been running for a while. Do you get any rehearsal time or do you just go and play it?
For people like me who are subbing, we do not get any rehearsal time, and we have to sit in on a performance. So I'll be going on Sunday. I have a typically long day. This coming Sunday, I'll be playing for church in the morning, and then playing for Drowsy Chaperone matinee, and then driving down to Goodspeed to observe 42nd Street, to observe the player that I'm going to be subbing for.
So
And
you'll sit in the green room. You won't actually see the show.
correct, yep. I mean, I'll see. I haven't been there, but I assume they'll have a video monitor that shows the conductor. So I'll see the conductor doing his thing, but I won't be able to see the stage or the audience. Um, and we do get the music in advance, so I have been learning the music, but yeah, it's a fairly stressful situation to be a sub on a show, in a regional theater or on Broadway, because the show is up and running. There's no opportunity for rehearsing with anybody. You just have to know it cold and go in and have nerves of steel and go do it.
Well, I mean, when you do something like Drowsy Chaperone or 42nd Street or any of the symphonic repertoire that you're doing, you've got to score ahead of time and you could listen to someone else's recording. For example, if you wanted to familiarize yourself, but you did the premiere of Kiss My Aztec at Hartford Stage. You probably never saw the score, never knew anything about it before you jumped in. How much time did you get to learn that?
We had a few weeks to learn the parts. We got them a few weeks in advance. But you're right. I mean, the show had been done at La Jolla as like a pre-Broadway production in California, and so there were some recordings, like demo recordings, from that production. So we had some idea of what the music was going to be like. But it was not nearly as fleshed out as the version that we got, the fully orchestrated version. So that was a lot of just, yes, we learned our parts individually in advance, but for that case, because I was a principal performer, I was rehearsing with the band. We had a week of rehearsals before the show opened. And that was just such a wonderful experience. It was such a fun show. It was so funny and so creative and so different from anything else I had ever done. There were a couple of New York musicians in the pit, Broadway musicians, and and a couple of outstanding local players from the Hartford area and the Connecticut area. And the music director was fantastic. Everything about that experience was just so much fun, and it was exactly what I needed to get back into the theater world over the summer.
Now, will there be theater worlds for you during the spring? When will Hart do another show this year? And
I was just asked. I mean, I was thinking about, this has been such a busy fall, with adding Drowsy Chaperone rehearsals to everything else that I'm doing, and I was thinking, how often am I really going to be able to do this? And just a couple of days ago, Hart offered me the music directorship of their spring production of Pippin, and that's one of my favorite shows. It's the first show that I ever played for, and so I couldn't say no to that. So yes, I'm gonna be busy again from January through March, music directing Pippin at Hart.
And Goodspeed just announced its new season for 2023, so maybe we'll see you at either playing at Gypsy or Dream Girls, and I mean they've got a great season lined up.
They do. I always look forward to playing there, and they have great selections, and it's just such a great place to play. Even getting tossed into a production, without rehearsal, just being a sub. I'm just so grateful to be there with these wonderful people and wonderful musicians.
And what better place than at Goodspeed, sitting there on the river, to do? I mean, it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous place.
Absolutely. I love doing doubles at good speed. That's when you play for a matinee and an evening performance on the same day. And it's nice for me because I only have to drive down once. But I often will bring my dinner, and just after the matinee, just go out to one of the picnic tables and have my dinner and sit and look at the water, and then go back and do another show. It's just an idyllic place.
It's heaven. So, David, before we go, give everybody the information on this opening concert of your season at Holyoke Civic.
It's going to be Sunday, October 23rd at 3 p.m. at Holyoke Community College. We're doing all Scandinavian music, and it's a free concert. We have no restriction on the size of the audience, other than 325 is the maximum number of seats in the theater. You do have to wear a mask, and or if you're not comfortable being there in person, or if you're not local to the area, you can register at our website, www.holyokecivicsymphony.org. Register for the Zoom meeting and watch us virtually.
David Kidwell, thanks for being here this morning on Artsbeat. Always a pleasure to have you as a guest.
Thanks, Mark. Great to see you.
And we need to have coffee soon. You drive through Longmeadow every day.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this ends another edition of Artsbeat. We're going to end today with some music from Joshua Roman called The Popper Project No. 9, The Etude. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll catch you next week on another edition of Artsbeat.